Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by Old School Lane, producing various content from blogs, videos, and podcasts discussing about movies, TV shows, video games, and everything else in between since 2011. You can check out the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. We're associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, The Comic Book Cast, and The Arun Mehta Show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia, and I am back with Jim Bevan. Welcome back, Jim.
Good to be back, Patty.
So last time we started off the new year with discussing about the comic strip series Calvin and Hobbes, and this time around we're going to be discussing about another comic strip series, but this time around it is Pearls Before Swine, which came out on December 31st, 2001, and it was created by Stephan Pastis. And unlike Calvin and Hobbes, in which it's more satirical and it features the lives of anthropomorphic animals. So we have the likes of pig, rat, zebra, goat, and various other characters such as a few crocodiles and Angry Bob. So yeah, it has been running for a pretty long time. Even still to this day, it's still garnered a huge amount of popularity. So I'm actually curious, how did you first get introduced to this?
Well, it's quite a long time ago because I was in a Borders bookstore, so, it's quite a while back. And I was checking the humor section to see what new comic compilations were out, and I found the second book, the second collection that had been put out, This Little Piggy Stayed Home, and it interested me. It was something I'd never seen before, so I grabbed it, bought it, read it when I got home, and I gotta say, I was very impressed. The art, admittedly, wasn't that great, but, for most cartoonists in their first or second year, they're still developing their style. But the writing was just so spot on, so clever. It really wasn't like anything I'd ever read in the comics before, and it got me hooked, and I became a follower. I started getting the new collections, check the new strip when it comes up every day, and I honestly gotta say, it's probably my favorite strip in the newspaper.
Yeah. Now, I was in a similar situation in which I was just looking through the collection of comic strips that would be compiled together, whether it be Garfield or Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes. And this must have been around when I was in my senior or junior year of college. I don't remember which one, but it was definitely around the early 2000s for sure when I first saw like at least one of the collections. And I think I remember picking it up, and I was just like glancing through it. This was probably around Barnes and Noble. I think that's where it was. And I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, wow, you have these like anthropomorphic animals talking about commentary on politics and, various things. And I just thought that was like really interesting. I actually was like reading through a majority of it right before I had to head out, and I sadly wasn't able to pick up the comic, but still I was intrigued with wanting to know more about it, and so eventually I did found it online when there were like snippets of it, like at least from the older versions until leading up to the newest one at the time. And then eventually when social media started coming into presence, Stephan Pastis came up and he started posting his stuff, and That's when I started reading more into it. So yeah, I'm actually intrigued about what would have been your favorite moments of Pearls Before Swine.
Let's see. Favorite moments. Well, there's a lot to look at. I have to say some of the moments I like aren't so much specific strips, but more so much aspects that have carried through. In the first couple of years, Stephan was very, let's just say, vocally critical about the state of the comics page. He
Hmm.
would frequently criticize syndicates that kept strips running for 70, 80 plus years, even after the original creators had died or moved on and were no longer relevant. Or he would criticize strips that were just trying to appeal to a certain demographic or just rely on like cliched lowest common denominator humor. So, there were quite a couple of jabs at stuff like Blondie and Dagwood and Garfield. And I'd like to think that probably not because solely of him, but we have seen some improvements made in that area over the comics page with wider range of voices coming out, and we're not just dealing with the same old cliche jokes anymore.
Right. Now, I can understand that, especially since the comic strip around the time that it was posting up, like around the early 2000s, when there was like a massive shift into going digitally as opposed to using newspapers because a lot more people were relying on the internet for their information. We even discussed about this in the Calvin and Hobbes podcast that 1995 was a crucial year for comic strips in which three of the most popular comic strips had ended and they were scrambling to find like the next big hit. So I guess around that time, I guess I remember more that it was more that Pearls Before Swine started getting more popularity online, akin to like some other comic strips, like the penny arcades were getting like really popular online too. So I take it that, pointing at cliches about, oh, if the comic strip creator has since passed away and they're passing on to the next person, then, it's just like going on zombie mode. Like we mentioned about how some things have just gone on for so long and they just lost the original integrity and spirit of the original. And I can understand like for comic strips at the time, if they're like exclusive to a certain newspaper or they're surrounded or they're publicated in multiple newspapers that they need to be able to keep that spot. Otherwise, that they'll start losing relevancy and nobody would know who they are. But I guess if they've been running for too long and they're no longer funny, then I guess that people would start becoming frustrated with it.
Yeah, as he pointed out in one of his strips, people really aren't really amused by henpecked husbands or bosses lusting after their secretaries or golfing gags. Another moment that I think really brought the strip to life was the introduction of the Crocs. I think that was when the strip really started getting into high gear because it just got so insane with those idiots.
Yeah. And sometimes whenever that the characters would meet up with the Crocs and they would just be saying something incredibly ignorant or kind of dumb, you're just wondering about where do they learn this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I used to have fun with my roommate in college. Whenever a new Croc strip came out, we would do the voices. Hello, Zibaneba.
Right. And I think that another reason why it became popular was when Pig would be talking more positively about what's going on around him, and Rat would just basically, turn him down, saying, "You're naive and you're kind of dumb if you think that that's the way it is," or if maybe Zebra would try to be more optimistic as well. But yeah, I mean, for some reason, I would see Rat a lot when it comes to the later of the run of Pearls Before Swine. I guess he became like really relatable and endearing to a lot of people for some reason.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree there. Now, when Rat started out, the he was definitely the cynic of the group. Always looking to get ahead, having no problem exploiting others, condescending, negative. But he has evolved over the years. You see that he comes from a place of frustration now, not a place of malice. And all the characters have kind of evolved too. Like you were talking about Pig. When it started out, he was basically just a foil, the dumb guy who gets the short end of the stick. But he's shown to be much more optimistic, and his naivete comes from more of a childlike sense of hope and wonderment.
Yeah, and similar thing to Goat as well, except that he's a little bit more intelligent than Pig.
Yeah.
The popularity of Rat almost reminds me a little bit of Strong Bad from the Homestar Runner Flash animation cartoons, in which, even though that Homestar Runner was like the main character and that's what the show is called, everybody got into Strong Bad. They loved his cynicism, they loved his sarcastic humor, and he even had his own series of drawings called Teen Girl Squad. And Rat kind of had a similar thing in which, he would be drawing a series of books called The Adventures of Angry Bob, where he would talk about how Angry Bob is frustrated with his life and he's angry and he ends up with a horrible and gruesome death at the end, very similar to like Teen Girl Squad, in which, all but one of the girls gets killed off.
Yeah, I missed it. It's been a while since he's done an Angry Bob. I think what he does now is the Danny Donkey strips, which is,
right.
For anyone who doesn't understand that, Danny Donkey is basically a parody of children's books where it looks like it's leading up to some heartfelt lesson, but at the end, Danny just gets drunk.
Yes, exactly. Which I take it that it makes a lot of sense because maybe at that point, there was a lot of children's media that he, maybe Stephan felt it was like really saccharine and just too pushing forward into making it really sweet and not offensive. So he's like, okay, I'm going to do a parody of this in which I'm just going to write a comic strip or a story about a character who is going to learn a life lesson, but then he doesn't really, and it's supposed to be like really colorful and really nice. But yeah, it just has this underline of, man, just kids media, especially with like teaching them about the lessons of life. It's, it's gotten way too overboard.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about his strip. He goes for basically the things in life that make no sense. I realize that's kind of like a broad statement, but if you look at his strip too much, he's poking fun so much at logical fallacies, pointless laws, pointless traditions we go by that we don't seem to question. I think I remember there was a good strip that came out earlier this year when Rat and Pig were at a restaurant, so it was early this year because they could actually dine out.
Right.
And Rat was asking why they were given a metal straw to drink from, and the waiter told him, "Oh, we don't use plastic straws anymore. They get in the ocean and can harm turtles." And then Rat says, "Oh, okay, I understand. How's the turtle soup tonight?" Very good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's one of those strips where you get a good setup, but then the follow-up reveals, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think you missed a step here.
Right. And then there was even talks about what is going on politics-wise. And, Rat is very, he's very abrasive when it comes to political stuff.
Yeah, he's pretty much Stephan's foil whenever there are political issues. Every time there's an election, he always has Rat run as his mouthpiece to vent his frustrations about the candidates.
Right.
And for the last couple of years, it's not consistent, but Rat has actually been president and has been used to poke fun at a certain individual whose name I will not mention because I'm sure a lot of people are tired of hearing about him.
Sure. Yeah, and another thing that I really like about this strip is that unlike most of the comic strips, Stephan himself is a character. And, he pokes a lot of himself and he's showcased on writing his work. And then you have Pig and Rat and Goat or even the crocodiles just kind of pester him. And he's just wondering, why did I create these characters? What have I done?
Yeah, I like it. You don't have enough. It's one of the few strips that does meta well. Like, a lot of people point to Deadpool as the best example of meta humor, but Deadpool can go a little overboard sometimes. Stephan, I think, knows how to do proper balance. He doesn't show up in every strip. Like, he'll appear occasionally to chastise his characters, or sometimes in the inverse, the characters will come and chastise him, especially when he's written a strip that ends in a really groan-worthy pun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of amusing. It shows he doesn't have an ego about him, because he's willing to let his creations basically knock him down a few pegs.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and there have been moments in which that the characters have collaborated in a few comic strips. I think I remember that there was one in Foxtrot in which the characters of Pearls Before Swine met up with the characters.
I think it was something like that. I don't remember exactly what happened, but yeah, he's done collaborations with Foxtrot. He's done collaborations with Get Fuzzy. I know a few years ago, Bill Watterson actually drew a week of strips for him.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the very few times in which he would, take, he would go back to drawing after his long retirement from Calvin and Hobbes and, produce something. And I know from discussing with the last podcast that he is a really big Pearls Before Swine fan.
That is not surprising. I mean, Stephan has admitted before that Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side were big influences, so it's it's not surprising that Bill is a fan of a work he helped inspire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were to take the snarkiness and social commentary of Calvin and Hobbes and just elevate it a lot more for adults, I can kind of see the influences shine on.
I know he said he's wanted to do a movie, but that hasn't really gone through yet. He did manage to get a film made out of his Timmy Failure series, the young readers books he puts out.
I've heard about that, yeah. I haven't seen it though.
It's pretty amusing. This one definitely has a strange Calvin and Hobbes feel, especially because Timmy's Timmy's partner is a polar bear.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so you definitely get a bit more influence there, but I am hoping that someday we do get Pearl's movie. I've even thought of a potential casting. I could imagine.
Okay, well, yeah, sure, share it at once.
Okay, here's where I could see it happening. I could imagine Wayne Knight as Rat, Billy West as Pig, Jeff Bennett as Goat, Phil Lamar as Zebra, and Kevin Michael Richardson as the Crocs.
Ooh, that's very interesting choices. I would love to hear all that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that Arlie Ermy is dead because I think he would have been perfect as Guard Duck.
Yeah. Those are interesting cast choices, yeah.
Well, thank you.
As for now, what would the plot be? I'm actually curious.
I don't know. He said before he would want to have it focused mostly on the Crocs. So I don't know. Probably would be just like a series of comedic events, probably like a montage movie, just of them going to more elaborate means to try and get Zebra, like a Coyote and Roadrunner sketch, probably stretched out to 90-some minutes, but with dialogue.
Yeah, and if we saw how the Peanuts movie did, then I think that if they're able to get the right talent and the right people involved, I think it'll turn out to be great.
Definitely.
As for whether it will happen or not, I'm not sure, but I would, love to see, something like that. I think that especially with this day and age, with, people wanting to, see a lot of funny social commentary about that, then I think that'll work out.
I agree, definitely. It would basically be, I could see it working as a television series too, like, a much more toned down South Park.
And Comedy Central has been trying to make their own version of South Park for about 20 years.
Yes, and that hasn't worked out in any case. Drawn Together didn't work out.
Nope.
Little Bush didn't work out. Legends of Chamberlain Heights didn't work out.
Nope.
So why not go for this? Do something that's actually based on an established property that is funny.
Yeah, and that's what the direction that they're going at now, because I know that Comedy Central is going to be doing revivals of their older properties. Beavis and Butthead is going to come back for the third time. They're going to do the Darius spinoff, and they're bringing back Ren and Stimpy. So if they want to have Pearls Before Swine featured in something like Comedy Central or maybe even on Paramount Plus, then yeah, I would love to see that happen.
Well, fingers crossed it comes to pass someday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I don't really have much to talk about with Pearls Before Swine. Do you have any final words to say about it right before we go?
Yeah, basically, all I have to say is thank you, Stephan, for 20 years of making us laugh and giving us some thought-provoking elements. You have definitely been a force for good on the comics page, and I'm wishing you the best in the future.
Absolutely, and same here as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on by, Jim. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I was glad to be here. I was very happy to talk about one of my favorite strips.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell people where they can find you at, plug and promote your stuff?
All right, you can find me on manicexpression.com, and you can also find me on Instagram. My account is JimB85. I just post random snippets there, writings, pictures. I commission occasional reviews. I'm actually thinking about branching out into reviews of magic products because I'm trying to add some material to my act. So I figure if I get new props or routines, I can offer my commentary on them, how well they work.
All right, sounds great. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Let us know in the comments below about your thoughts on Pearls Before Swine. Who are your favorite characters? What was your favorite moment? Would you like to see Pearls Before Swine expand into a movie or a TV show? So that's it. Hope to see you around soon, and take care. Thank you.